Hey, thanks for coming back. Do me a favor, please like, subscribe, share the video. And if you wouldn't mind, leave a comment down below. Hey, we got to talk about how the restaurant industry is sinking like a ship. And, very few ships sink anymore. And one of the reasons is they're just better built. They're better managed. And the engineering on how they operate is much better, most likely much better than it's ever been in history. But the restaurant industry is dying. And I know a lot of people are talking about the fact that it has to do with, excuse me, the economy. The economy is only a very small part of it. People have money. They have money to spend. Not everybody, I get that. But those who are spending money are choosing very carefully how they spend it. Anyway, what does that have to do with cruising? Well, I just got off a cruise. Now, let me first preface this by saying I haven't been on a cruise in probably 25 years. The last time I went, I was very young, obviously. And I went with a buddy, and I was partying back then. I was having fun. I stayed drunk for probably 3 days and gambled. And I certainly didn't see much of the ocean because I was usually only awake at night. And I certainly didn't use any of the amenities except the bathrooms and the bed for a couple of hours here and there. Had a below decks room. It was one of those real estate cruises. You had to go, they'd try to sell you timeshare, and then you got a 3-day cruise, basically Miami, Bahamas, and back. And anyway, I went on a cruise this past week. I just got off the ship yesterday, and my family, my immediate family and my extended family members were on the cruise. And I have to tell you, it reminded me of, frankly, how my entire restaurant industry used to operate years ago. We were known for service. We were known for attention to detail. We were known for taking just impeccable care of the customer because we were very aware that if we didn't care for the customer, there would be no customer. Now, I have to go back. Sometimes you have to listen to the old guy, because I remember the first time I worked in a restaurant. I worked as a busboy. Well, I was a dishwasher, but my first time on the front of the house, let's call it, I was a busboy. Without getting into too much detail, at the time I was working construction. I was actually working for a painting contractor. I was just running around from job to job. As a younger guy, I was a mechanic. I hated that, moved on from that. And then I, like everybody does, when you're on your way to something bigger, you go through construction or the restaurant industry or whatever. It turns out I went into the restaurant industry and I stayed there. And I don't regret it. I love it. I still love it to this day. And I'm still learning. But anyway, my first job was as a busboy. And I'll never forget this. It was winter time in New York. And it was the depths of winter. I mean, there was 2 feet of snow outside. So my day job was to paint. And at this particular time, we were painting the inside of a log cabin. And we were spraying polyurethane. We had suits and not a lot of protection, by the way, ventilation and otherwise. And I just remember this freezing cold, and we're spraying inside, and the spray guns would jam because of the cold, and it was torture. I remember my hands being blue from the cold. And gloves weren't even as good back then. We have much better quality clothing now, and protection gear and masks and gloves, and we didn't have that back then. But anyway, I would finish that job at 4:30 or 5 or whatever it was in the afternoon. Then I would go to my part-time night job as a busboy, and I'll never forget, the first time I worked, I was in training, and there were mostly a bunch of girls who were waitresses there, and they were essentially teaching me, basically teaching me the ropes of how it all worked. And anyway, I picked up a few plates, I wiped down the tables, I reset the tables, brought the dishes into the kitchen, blah, 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 blah. Helped the customers out where I could. I knew nothing, I was completely green. And I don't remember what the pay was, but it wasn't much. It was like a few bucks an hour, maybe $4 an hour, $5 an hour, probably not even, but anyway, at the end of the night, the head server, who actually wasn't a very nice person, but the head girl came over and she handed me, a little pile of cash. And I said, "What is this?" And they said, "That's your tip out." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I didn't know what a tip out was. And I forget how much money was in that little stack. It was mostly dollar bills or whatever. But let's say it was $40. And it may not have been that much back then. This was a long, long time ago. But I remember looking at this pile of cash and I was like, wow, like, you mean to tell me that I just hand people things that they want and they pay me to do that, and they're smiling at me, and it's really warm in here, and the restaurant has a fireplace in the corner, and everybody's laughing and joking and having a great time, and you're gonna pay me to do this? Like, what the hell, man? Did I just enter paradise? And from that moment on, I fell in love with the industry. I went on to become a bartender. I did some cooking. I own my own place, but it's not about that. It's not about me. It's about the experience that I had back then. But the entire focus back then was the customer. And the customer came in, they really respected the restaurant. And the restaurant really respected them. And you know what? We have lost that respect. We've lost respect for each other. We've lost respect for the idea of service. Now, one of the greatest things about the cruise ship is when you're on the cruise ship, you pay essentially a flat fee. Everything is included. And if you buy the drink package or you don't or whatever, but everything is included. There is no tipping, but the survival of the entire ship and industry and future is based on the relationship between the customer and the people who are providing the service. That's what it's all about. Now, when you go into a room like that, and I'm going to refer to the ship as a room just for a minute. When you go into a room like that, and the first people to be nice are the people who run the room, you have two choices. You can either be nice back or be miserable. But when you walk into a room full of really nice, fun-loving, genuinely kind people who really care about you, it's very hard to be nasty. And frankly, if you're the nasty person in the room, you're the outcast and you'll feel it. So you probably won't be on that ship, and you certainly won't be in a restaurant. You're probably a hermit. You stay home, you go to the store, you scowl, and you go home. You don't have a social life. Now, I'm not knocking that. I know a lot of people are introverts. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people who are miserable. Now, I swear to you, after being a week on that ship, I got off the ship. The first thing, and I'm not knocking anybody. I guess I'm knocking our society. So as I single people out, I don't want it to sound like I'm singling out that individual or that industry or that profession. But it's just a fact. It's a fact. I get off the cruise ship. The first person I meet is customs. Absolutely. I want to use a word. It's a 4-letter word. It's actually, it's a 7-letter word. Absolutely miserable person. And my heart just dropped as I got off the ship. Now, anywhere I go, I walk in with a smile. And I just thought, oh my God, this is so horribly sad. My next encounter is with the Uber driver, who was actually a really nice man. Took us to the airport. He wasn't very talkative, but he was polite and he's kind. and he was professional, and he took our cases, put them in the car, and we got to the airport, took them out, and then I got to go through security all over again, and we have our boarding passes and we have all that stuff, and I go in, and why is it that the only place I feel scared, number one, because if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or move in the wrong way, they either won't let me on my flight or they won't let a family member on the flight. And I feel like I'm doing something illegal without doing anything. So I encounter this at TSA. And then my wife is standing a couple of feet behind me and my daughter is standing beside me. My daughter had carried my wife's bag and put it on the little conveyor belt. And the woman is checking the bag. Now I know she's going to say, "Is this your bag?" And my daughter's going to say, "No, I'm carrying it for my mom." And then everybody's going to freak out. And I kind of raised so my wife would hear me. I raised my voice. I'm like, "Babe, come here." And then there's 4 sheriff's deputies or cops or whatever they were. No disrespect. I have a lot of friends who are cops. But they turn around and look at me like there's a situation. And it scared the hell out of me, because this is what happens. A second later would have been guns drawn and I'm in handcuffs. I mean, we are out of control as a society and as a people. We have lost respect for each other. Then I get past there and I get to the plane, and I notice we were flying with JetBlue, which is one of my favorite airlines. We had a flight down with Spirit Airlines. Nothing wrong with Spirit Airlines at all. People say bad things about Spirit. I guess I've been fortunate now. I don't fly very often, but I had a good experience with Spirit coming down. Most of the time I do. But JetBlue is my favorite airline. They just do it better. And I notice at the gate, I can, I'm a people person. So I sense the temperament of the people. And I figured these are nice people. This is going to be a nice flight. You can tell. Because I know that if I see a nice person, I know that if I'm nice to them, they'll be nice back. If I see somebody with a scowl on their face, I know that I'll be nice to them. I may turn them around, but most of the time you don't. So anyway, we got on the plane, we sit on the plane, we're getting ready for takeoff, and there was 2 gentlemen. It was a father and a son. Now, the father was a young man, and the son was a little younger. So it wasn't like the father was an old, crippled man or had any issues. Certainly didn't look like he was fearful of flying or any of that stuff. But there must have been some kind of screw up with the seating. And as they're leaving the gate, now the father and the father was in front seat, and the son was sitting directly behind them. So they must have booked seats together or tried to book seats together, but they couldn't accommodate that at that time. So they put them, front to back or in front of each other. So now the young man starts challenging the lady flight attendant, and you can tell that things are not going well. And they're pushing back, and then she said, "Well, we can't do that right now, but right here, like your father's right here, you're right here. It's a 1-hour flight, by the way. I should have said that up front. It's 1 hour and 14 minutes going from Fort Lauderdale to Charleston, South Carolina. 1 hour and 14 minutes. You barely have time to go to the bathroom. So anyway, she walks away to get somebody else. So a couple of minutes later, the young man comes up. To say he was brilliant is an understatement. I was so impressed with this guy, having been in the service industry all my life. So he walks up, and as he knows now what's going on, because I know how they operate. She goes back, she's like, "There's a jerk in seat 4 or 5 or whatever it was. Somebody else deal with him." So the guy doesn't, the flight attendant doesn't go up and acknowledge him. He walks past him, then he turns around and stands sort of on the station in the aisle, because he knows the guy is going to basically attack him. So the guy calls him over, and the man goes, "Well, yeah, so like you could move, there's 2 seats down there, there's 2 seats over here, there's 2 seats here, 2 seats there." And he says, we can do that, but we can't do it now because we're getting ready to take off. So after we take off, you can sit there. And then the guy starts challenging him again. And the guy is not raising his voice, but he's whining and complaining. And I know how this works. This guy is going to make a federal case out of this because he wants something for free, or he wants a free flight, or he wants something for nothing. There's not a problem. It's not like he's dealing with, an infant or something. And I don't need to explain that to you. You know what's going on here. Especially if you're in the service industry, you know exactly what's going on. So the flight attendant, finally the flight attendant knows this, and he knows he's getting nowhere. And then he sort of raises his voice. Now, people on the plane in the general area know what's going on. They know that things are not right. And they're sensing that there's a problem. So then the flight attendant sort of raises his voice, just enough to where people, certainly within, let's say, 6 rows around the whole situation, can hear. He says, do you want us to go back to the gate? Do you want to get off the plane? Do you really want to do this? Do you want to go back? You just tell me, do you want to go back to the gate? And then the guy kind of looks around, and all of a sudden he's the jerk, realizes he's the jerk, and says, no, let's see what happens after takeoff, but this is not right. So now a lady who was sitting in the seat beside the jerk young kid, she says, I'm going to get up and move. So she gets up and moves and comes back to a seat actually closer to us, which was very kind of her to do. She didn't have to do that, but she realizes the ridiculousn's of the situation. She moves, comes and sits beside, basically on our row across from us. And I just turned to her, I said, ma'am, what you did was pure class. And I proceeded to talk to her about the fact that I'm in the service industry, and these flight attendants get beat up every single day. They really do. People beat them up, and they don't deserve it. Most of them are extremely professional. Not all waitresses and bartenders, etc., are professional, but these people, most of them, 99.9%, are very professional, very kind, and very accommodating, because it's their job to be accommodating. Anyway, then now there's a spare seat. The guy doesn't move into the seat. Now he's going to make a federal issue out of this. So now the plane lands, what seems to be 10 minutes later. So stupid. So I'm in row, where am I? I'm in row 8. They're probably in row 4 or 4 and 5 or whatever. Now I'm watching, the people are deplaning. My wife and my family deplane. And as we're walking out, I see these 2 gentlemen, and they're sitting in the very front row. In other words, they're waiting to talk to. They're waiting till the plane gets, emptied or whatever. Everybody's off the plane, and they're going to attack this guy. And as I'm walking up, you know how one of the flight attendants will usually stand right there at the exit. And this man, the male flight attendant, happened to be standing there, and I got up close enough to him, and I said, you handled that brilliantly. And he just smiled. He goes, thank you very much. And we went on our way. And I can guarantee you there was a pushback, there was an argument, and here's the problem. JetBlue will probably give them something. They will either give them a free flight or a discount on a flight or whatever it is. And I'm telling you right now, that crap has to stop. The customer is always right to a point. The people who destroyed this are chain restaurants and the airlines and the big giant corporations. I remember years ago, friends of mine working at Outback, and all you had to do was complain about the least little thing, they would give you a free meal. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we have, first of all, we're spoiled and entitled in America, certainly. We're spoiled and entitled to begin with. Now we have people out there who think that they are the most important person on the plane or in the restaurant or on the cruise ship or wherever it is. We also have people who have so much money, young people who have so much money, they don't need to work. They're not hungry to work because in many cases, their parents are funding their lives. I'm one of them. I'm as guilty as anybody else. But that does not give you the right to be nasty or to be impolite. And this is what's going to happen to the restaurant industry. I'm telling you right now, I was in the coffee shop just now this morning, and there was a man in front of me, and he was complaining about the fact that the line was really long. And I said to him, I said, you know what, it is long. I said, but something's not right here. These people are usually really good. This is a privately owned coffee shop. And I walk up, and sure enough, I know the lady behind the counter, and she says, oh my God, the computers are down. We're doing everything manually. And I said, and then I looked over to the guy, and I said, okay, that explains it. Now I'm kind of defending her and the place, because it's a very well run place. And he was relentless. He's like, I don't care, they should fix it. And I thought to myself, you should fix yourself. There's nothing that needs to be fixed here. Things go wrong, but for the most part, if you're in the service industry, you need to be really, 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 really nice. But if somebody mistreats you, you need to push back. The lady in the coffee shop pushed back against that man. She already explained there was a problem. If you don't like that, tough shit, buddy. And the flight attendant on the plane, he pushed back and said, yeah, you want to try to be a jerk? Let's make you the jerk. Let's take this plane back to the gate so you can get booed off the damn plane. I am not putting up with your bullshit today. And the customer needs to do that to the server. But we have to understand, when you want to eat food outside of your home, it should be a great experience for you, the person ordering the food, and for the person who is serving you the food. It's called service. It's called service. And used to be called service with a smile. Let's not call it service with a scowl. There's a reason grocery stores are selling freshly prepared foods. It's because the restaurant service is going downhill really, really fast. And unless we turn that around as an industry, I'm telling you, the only ones that are going to survive going forward are those people who are offering good service. And I guarantee you, people say, oh, times change, they're not different. I can guarantee you put me to this day on a floor or behind a bar, and you have me smiling and talking and being kind, and you have another person 10 feet away from me with a scowl on their face, bitching about their job, bitching about everything in life, and not doing anything to be nice to the customer, help the customer. I guarantee you, I will make at minimum 20% more tips than they will. It's that simple. And if you walk into a restaurant, if you first have a smile on your face, I guarantee you 99 times out of 100, you will get better service. Because people like nice people. Nice people especially like nice people. And if you walk into that restaurant and you're nice and that person is not nice to you, then yes, you need to speak up. And if you're not willing to speak up, you're not going back to that restaurant. You're just not doing it. And this is what people don't realize. They see the numbers dropping and they'll blame Trump and they'll blame Biden and Obama and Clinton and any other president before or after. They'll blame it on the economy. They'll say things are too expensive. People don't have enough money. Blah, 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 blah. What they don't realize is me. I walk into the restaurant. I get treated like crap. I don't say anything. I just don't go back. So you need to ask yourself in the service industry that question. Are these people not coming to my restaurant because they don't have money? Or are they not coming because me and my people are not nice to them? While my family and I were on that cruise, I have never in my life been treated so beautifully, so well, so kindly. The service was absolutely impeccable. And there's only two people really. Well, actually, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this, but I know I was told you really don't tip anybody on the ship, although I did. But the one person that I guess it's giving you a tip is the person who takes care of your room, the steward. I forget what they're called. See, I'm not cruise smart. I just know goodness. But I guarantee you, the guy that took care of our room was a very happy guy when he came in there and he opened. I had an adjoining room for my daughter, so there were 2 envelopes for him that I left on the counter there in our cabin. And I can guarantee you, that gentleman is smiling. And you know why? He was absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. And phenomenal people in the service industry deserve to get paid really, really, really well. Now, the other thing is, the economy is changing. Habits are changing also, maybe more than the economy is. Younger people are getting healthy. You see what's going on with Starbucks? The 25 to 35, 45-year-olds, they're not spending, they don't want the $9 coffee or the $7 coffee or whatever the hell it is. It's just not that cool anymore. You're considered stupid now if you spend money on things you don't need. You know, so if you're going to survive, it's going to be very important for you in your segment or in your industry, especially if it has to do with service. You have to be nice. You have to be kind. And I'm telling you right now, go on a cruise. Now, the cruise I was on years ago was Carnival. People say, oh, Carnival is garbage. I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm not knocking Carnival. I don't know enough about them. I'm sure they have nice ships, just like some restaurants are nice, some are not so nice. I'm sure Carnival is no different. But we, in particular, were on Royal Caribbean, and it was absolutely, absolutely phenomenal. And so phenomenal that we've booked another cruise in January. My wife and I work very hard. We're raising a daughter, which is hard work in itself. And we need these breaks. And when you go on a cruise ship, the service that they give you, it just takes you away. It takes you to a whole other world of total relaxation. And if you need to get to and from your cruise ship, I don't not recommend Spirit. I like Spirit. I've had good luck with them. Now again, I'm not flying from LAX to New York's Kennedy or LaGuardia. I'm not flying in and out of crazy airports. You know, I'm flying from Charleston to Fort Lauderdale. So the chances of delays, especially in Charleston, are very, very minimal. These are, although it's a high volume airport now, they're low volume by comparison. So, but I highly recommend JetBlue. JetBlue are phenomenal, and huge shout out to that one flight attendant. You know, even at my age, people like that in our industry, and service industry is the service industry. It doesn't matter if you're on a cruise ship, if you're a flight attendant, if you're, if you're a busser on a cruise ship or a busser in a restaurant. Nice people really impress me, and they inspire me. And this young man inspired me. So anyway, I hope this video helps somebody. But be nice. And if you're in the restaurant industry, man, you need to be really nice right now. You need to be nice to your staff. You need to be nice to your customers, because you'll have neither if you're not. Thanks for watching.